Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. So on Wednesday, I'm going to do an episode, and I'm going to cover a bunch of comments that have been made by Jewish people and what episodes they're commenting on, what the stuff in Hebrew they're saying means, some threats and Mossad type stuff we're going to go into, and I'm interested in which episodes they're on and what that means. Well, I got to make this episode first. So this was from a comment on the recent Talmud episode on YouTube. Somebody put me on this, and I didn't write down the name. My apologies. I did comment to him and thank him for this, though. But basically, a lot of the comments on that episode talk about how the Talmud isn't really even used in Judaism. Nobody believes that stuff, okay? And then that's completely false, of course, because well, there's a part of it that's true. I talked about it in a previous episode. I'll link that below, which is the branches of Judaism and how the Orthodox Jews believe that all the teachings of the Torah and the Talmud are binding and unchangeable, whereas conservative Judaism believes that they're binding but changeable, and then Reformed Judaism thinks that they're neither binding nor changeable. So it depends on which branch of Judaism you're in is the lens that you look at it. But no matter how you look at it, all of the rabbis go to their yeshiva schools and learn the Talmud. And so it's kind of like a pastor going and preaching, going to the Dallas Seminary, which we talked about in a previous episode, learning dispensationalism and coming back. And they don't even have to teach it directly. They infuse it in their sermons, we'll say. So we're going to look at this very interesting story of Jewish supremacy. And the reason why I want to point this out is because this is what the end goal is. If you take fundamentalist Judaism and you believe in the Talmud and the Torah, and you take it to its logical end, this is what you're going to get, and it's going to be wild. And I'm going to say so many supremacist things in this episode, and I don't mean any of them for me. I'm just quoting the episode, including praising Hitler and stuff like that. This is just going to be ridiculous. So here's you can look at this article below. I'm going to read almost the entire thing. It's short, but it's wildly interesting. Settler rabbis recorded preaching Jewish supremacy, lauding Hitler's ideologies. Rabbis at West Bank Religious Academy urge enslavement of non-Jews, call Hitler's worldviews correct. So this is from 2019, April 30th. Okay, let's go. Two rabbis at a pre-military religious academy in a West Bank settlement were recorded touting themselves as self-proclaimed racists, promoting Jewish supremacy, and lauding Adolf Hitler's ideologies. A series of undated recordings broadcast by Israel's Channel 13 News on Monday showed Rabbi Eliezer Kashtiel, the head of the B'nai David Academy in the settlement of Eli, calling for the enslavement of non-Jews, including stupid and violent, end quote, Arabs. Settlement of Eli, I believe, is where that other guy was from in that other article I did, where he was promoting, it was the one on spitting on the Christians, I believe. And he was promoting, he was from that same community. And he was promoting, and he had murdered a Palestinian too. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Quote, the Gentiles will want to be our slaves. Being a slave to a Jew is the best. They're glad to be slaves. They want to be slaves, end quote. Kashtiel is heard telling pupils in one of his videos, quote, instead of just walking the streets and being stupid and violent and harming each other, once they're slaves, their life can begin to take shape, end quote. Okay, here we go. Quote, all around us, we are surrounded by peoples with genetic problems. Ask a simple Arab, where do you want to be? He wants to be under the occupation. Why? Because they have genetic problems. They don't know how to run a country. They don't know how to do anything. Look at them, end quote. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. This is just hilarious. Kashtiel is heard boasting that, quote, yes, we're racist. We believe in racism, end quote. And says that, quote, Jews are a more successful race, end quote, and must, quote, try to help, end quote, the other races of the world. In another clip from the same religious seminary, a second rabbi, Rabbi Giora Redler, can be heard praising Adolf Hitler as, quote, the most correct person there ever was, end quote. Quote, let's just start with whether Hitler was right or not, end quote. He was heard telling students, quote, he was the most correct person there ever was and was correct in every word he said. He was just on the wrong side, end quote. He adds that the real genocide against the Jewish people was not the one perpetrated by the Nazis, but rather by humanism and the secular culture. So this is ultra-Orthodox talking here. The recordings drew sharp condemnation from Israel's opposition lawmakers, but Kashtiel defended his comments, saying he was pained and that his lesson on human rights was misinterpreted, and claimed that he had been advocating social responsibility and caring for the weak. This particular yeshiva has in the past sparked controversy for espousing radical views. The co-founders and a number of teachers at the academy have been recorded preaching to students against the education of women and their inclusion in Israel's military. In 2016, the co-founder of the yeshiva was recorded calling gay people, quote, sick and perverted, end quote. An attempt by then Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman to defund the academy in 2017 was blocked by Israel's Attorney General for legal reasons. And then that's the end of it. So I think it's pretty interesting because, like, when I did that episode a couple weeks ago and I'm talking about all of these supremacist ideologies that exist in the Talmud, and then the people in the comments say, but that's not real thing. It's not a real thing. What is a real thing? And these are people who are in illegal settlements, so they're in violation of international law because they're in the West Bank, illegally settling, and they're teaching the people these radical things. So these things they're teaching are so radical, in my opinion, that, like, you can't call me a supremacist. You can call me whatever you want, actually. But I'm not promoting supremacy, because what I'm always promoting is just self-determination of my people, which we do not have, and I wish to regain that. And that's a thing that's okay for every other people on the planet, but just not for my people. We're just not allowed to, because there's a double standard. I think it's terrible when actual white supremacists decided that the weak people of Africa needed white man's help. So they went there and said, hey, we could dig some wells for you. We can do this and that. And then they're like, oh, we could work on your medical and sanitation too. So then they have a baby boom. And they're like, oh, well, now we need to import food for you. And you make these people completely dependent on you because you're so much superior to them that you just need to go. They need you. They need the white man to come help them. No, let them live their lives. If that's what they want to do, let them do that. They're obviously not ready for the population boom because their society hasn't progressed in some areas of Africa to a level where this is sustainable without outside help. Nobody wants to live in a situation where life is unsustainable without outside help, because then you're completely dependent. And it's absolute nonsense. I think those people of Africa deserve their self-determination, and everybody just stay out of what they're doing. If you look at the self-determination thing, it's so important. Like, we've wrecked how many different countries? Libya, Ukraine. The Palestinians can't have their self-determination, and the United States just goes around doing this. I don't want to be involved in any of that. So what I'm saying is this ideology that they're preaching is way, way more extreme. The Talmudic rabbinical teachings are so much more extreme than what I'm pushing, and I'm considered to be wildly extreme if you just heard people talk like about people like me. But I'm saying I'm not that extreme. If 100 years ago you said, well, these people are white people or whoever, English, what if you just said English people deserve their self-determination, or the Irish? They deserve for their country to be theirs. That's wildly racist nowadays to say, and that's insane. Compared to what they're saying in that article, it's a very reasonable position. It's ridiculous that we live in a world that's an unreasonable position. So the stuff in the Talmud obviously does have real world application, and it's a disastrous end to it if you take it all literally. Now, I do obviously admit that this is the most extreme example I could provide for you, and that it's not representative of 99% of Judaism. But it negates what they're saying in the comments, that just nobody does this. And then everybody does it to various degrees. If you're on the Reformed Judaism side, you're doing very little of it. You're getting exposed to very little of it. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and that doesn't mean it's a part of Judaism. Did your rabbi study the Talmud? Just answer that for me. Anyways, that's what I got for you. Wednesday, we're going to be talking about these Jewish comments. I think it's going to be very interesting. Hope to see you there.